Welcome everyone, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining this UK 100 Lunchtime Learning webinar, which is called Leap into the Future. And as the name suggests, this session is focusing on local area energy planning. My name is Cecily. For those of you that haven't seen me before, I am UK 100's Membership Programme Manager, and I will be your chair today. I will like to upfront say that I will be your female chair for an otherwise all male panel, and I would like to say on behalf of the females in attendance at this webinar, apologies for that. We had hoped to have one of our other staff members join us to talk about some of our energy work, but unfortunately she is unable to join us today as planned. We do have what is otherwise known as a manel. So we'd just like to acknowledge that upfront and apologise, but we do try our best, and I will attempt to represent the females of the world effectively today. So yeah, thank you for joining us. The Lunchtime Learning Series is our opportunity at UK 100 to bring together a range of perspectives, insights and examples from the UK 100 members and the wider sector on all things net zero and local climate. Today's topic, as discussed, is local area energy planning, and specifically local councils' roles in navigating the net zero energy transition and the tools available to support you in doing that. Very lucky today to have speakers from Cardiff Council, Leicestershire County Council and UK 100, so it's promising to be a wide ranging and informative discussion. A few things that we'd like to talk about first is just our exciting climate conference coming up. So our local climate, 5 and 25 local climate conference Beyond Targets, which is happening on the 13th of June in Birmingham. Registrations are now live for that, and we'd love for you to join us. This conference is really a direct result of the many conversations that we've had with members about the complexities in delivering your ambitious local climate commitments, given the barriers you faced in accelerating local climate action to date. To add to that, the local election results last week will likely have sent some shockwaves through some of our member councils, given the changes to what was once a consensus on net zero. So we are kind of taking the moment at this pivotal moment for local climate action, with 5 years from 2030 and halfway to 2050, to use the conference as a moment to celebrate all of the success on local climate action to date, because there really is so much to celebrate for your local leadership, whilst also using the opportunity to work together as a sector with businesses, with environmental allies, to explore the pathway to 2050 and beyond, and what that looks like for our targets. So please join us for this first in-person event after the local elections to develop that vision for where the sector needs to be by 2050 and what we need to do together to deliver that. The conference will include a series of honest conversations about the state of play for local net zero, especially around targets, with a mix of panel discussions and masterclasses where we'll really delve deep into some of the nitty-gritty and climate topics, including energy, net zero financing, clean air, and the future of climate-friendly housing. So please join us at this conference to have your say on where we go from here. Gather those practical solutions, inspirations for your local action, and connect with peers and allies who share your ambitions. The event will be in Birmingham at this nice conference space shown on the slide, which is Austin Court in Birmingham, and it's on the 13th of June. So we hope you're able to join us. Paid members will be able to access 3 free tickets, and ally members will be able to access an early bird rate that is on our website currently. So please do go ahead and grab your tickets now. Just quickly, also a reminder that we have introduced a new membership model for 2025. So as referenced just there, with paid members able to access 3 free tickets for the conference. This new membership model allows us to better respond to the challenges that our members are facing and further tailor our support to you and what you need. So all of the events all of the lunchtime learnings will remain free to access for allies, but Paid members will be able to access free places on our Climate Leadership Academy, applications for which open in June, free tickets to the conference, priority access to our LGA dinner, and a whole host of other things. So if you are still in need of kind of having a conversation within your council about your membership of UK 100, then do get in touch with us at membership@uk100.org, which is our email address, and one of my colleagues will be putting our membership brochure in the chat too. That is enough from me. So just to kind of recap on the topic of today's webinar, which is local area energy planning, at a time when the energy landscape is evolving rapidly and there are more acronyms than anyone can keep on top of. But in addition, there's more roles for local authorities, local councils in achieving the government's clean power mission. Your role has never been more crucial. So to give us a clearer understanding on what that role now looks like and what is changing in the energy system, we've got three excellent speakers with us today. Firstly, to give us some more information on what UK 100 is doing to support its member councils on all things energy is Philip Glanville, who is UK 100's Director of Advocacy and Engagement. We will then hear from Gareth Harcombe, who is Energy and Sustainability Manager at Cardiff City Council, who will be coming to talk about Cardiff's local area energy plan and what that looks like and the impact of LEAPs in Wales, followed by Michael Suddens, who is the Project Manager for the Leicestershire Collaborate to Accelerate Net Zero demonstrator, who will be talking about Leicestershire's local area energy plan. Please use the Q&A function in your navigation bar to ask any questions of our speakers, and anything that you put in the chat will be picked up and moved to that space. Please also feel free to introduce yourselves and share your own ideas through the chat box. It's your space to connect and collaborate. So please do make the most of the opportunity to introduce yourself and find your friends. And then just also to let you know that this webinar will be recorded. The presentations will be recorded and uploaded to our website, but the Q&A will remain under Chatham House rule and therefore will not be uploaded to the website. So if there is anything juicy that comes up in the Q&A, we ask you to make your own notes and keep that to yourself for your own use rather than sharing it. It won't be shared on our website. So we have about 45-50 minutes today, so I'm going to stop talking and hand over to my excellent colleague Phil Glanville. Over to you, Phil.
Thanks so much, Cecily. Just to echo what Cecily said about the manual, that was never our intention around this event. And I'm standing in for Tanisha Kapoor, who did much of the work that I'm talking about over the course of the last 15 months. Really positively, though, looking at the attendees list, I think some of the most influential and powerful women in local area energy are actually joining us today. And I will be touching on some of the work that we've done with some of you in my presentation. So that's a really positive thing. Energy remains one of our key priorities. We did a huge amount in 2024 and we're continuing that work here in 2025. As some of you will know, last year we published our Net Zero Energy Transition Local Area Energy Planning Toolkit that was produced with UKPN DSO, and I can see Venus has attended from UKPN today. We also published an FAQ guide in collaboration with Somerset Council around renewable energy. That was an outcome of our Local Power in Action programme, and we did several in-person and online events around the role of local authorities in energy planning, be it with both UKPN, DSO, and also SSEN. We held last October a fantastic local clean energy summit, bringing together our members, the sector and industry, looking at things like the LEAP toolkit, but also touching on the new energy system, the role of RESPs, the role of GB Energy in the future, and also crucially how engagement is really vital, whether you're looking at things like community energy, the different methodologies used in local area energy planning, and of course, the interaction with the planning system. We spent a lot of the year engaging with DSOs across the country, the REST process, NESO, Ofgem, business, funders, and the community energy sector, as well as obviously our members during the course of the year in the production of that work. And I just want to thank any member that's joined us today or watches this back, because we wouldn't have been able to produce the toolkit, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do without your insight and expertise. And I think having Leicestershire and Cardiff here presenting their perspectives will really bring that alive. We took all of that knowledge, all of that insight, and we've had regular meetings with government, with new MPs, and responding to consultations. Just since last summer, we've responded to 6 energy-related consultations with everything from the REST process all the way through to the energy workforce and what's needed for local authorities and the supply chain to deliver many of the things we'll be talking about today. And with our partners, with our specialist research consultants, and of course our chief executive, we've also been publishing articles and thought leadership and trying to bring alive what can feel like sometimes a dry subject, but is absolutely essential to support local authorities in their net zero journeys. Are simple. They're not simple in terms of having been delivered yet, but our key energy asks that we are working through in our advocacy work is a national framework and funding for LEAPs in England. We'll be hearing from Cardiff shortly. We've been saying and repeatedly saying that there's a good system in place in Wales and a parallel system in Scotland. We need that kind of structure and that funding and direction here in England. We believe that there should be a funded role for local authorities and combined authorities within the RESP system. There's obviously an evolving governance picture happening there, but we know that this is an additional kind of pressure on local authorities when they're going through tough financial times. We believe in an end to short-term and competitive funding for community energy. Some good progress there, but still more work to do. And we think that within GB Energy and the local power plan, local government's got to be baked in, not just in the mission statement, but how funding and how policy wrap around that in the local power plan. We also want to see national planning policy align with climate and net zero. We've done a lot of responses and engagement with MHCLG about NPPF reform, but also linking that up with some of the housing and regulatory standards work and how that then fits into local energy policy. And finally, just crucially, is the role of engagement that I said at the start and making sure that engagement is baked into all national policy, whether it's about planning reform or energy. And we love playing around with words and puns here at UK 100. The title is obviously Leap into the Future for the session. I just wanted to talk a little bit quickly. Some of these things you'll hear about from others, and you may have heard already. But we've got a brilliant community energy and investment workshop in Sheffield on Monday, where we'll also be publishing the results of the energy survey we've conducted. We're still really interested in insights, and there's still an opportunity to quickly fill that in, and I'll post a link when I've stopped speaking. But really thank you to the upwards of 20 councils that have already responded. We're also going to be at the the All Energy Conference in Glasgow and Utility Week Live. I won't touch on the conference because Cecily did an amazing job. We're trying to land all of our work into the local power plan and the next stage of RESPs, always making that case for local authorities and their role. And really exciting work that we're going to be doing with UKPN DSO this year on flexibility and EV charging support. And again, Venus is on the call. So if you're in UKPN's patch and want to reach out to the DSO team, I'm sure sending a message to Venus would be very welcome. And we will again be at the LGA conference, hosting our dinner there, supported by SSEN this year. And just to finish, we heard the Climate Leadership Academy reference. There is always a powerful programme of training sessions and workshops at the CLA around energy. Last year, we looked at RESPs there and LEAPs, and we also looked at other aspects of the energy system like heat networks. So if you have cabinet members that you really think could benefit from that training and that investment in kind of capacity building around energy, please do think about telling them about the programme and getting those applications in. Please do also let us know if we've missed anything, and I'll post the survey to capture some of that insight in the chat. Thanks a lot.
Marvellous. Thank you so much, Phil. That was all great. It's been busy times for UK 100 on energy, if that wasn't apparent, and all of that information is on our website. So we've just bombarded you with links in the chat, and we'll send them in a follow-up email also. Without further ado, though, I'm very excited to introduce Gareth Harcombe from Cardiff City Council, who is coming to talk about Cardiff City Council's local area energy plan, which was, I believe, one of the first in the UK, given that Wales are way ahead of the curve on all things LEAP. So Gareth, over to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Leslie. Afternoon, everyone. So I'm Gareth Harcombe. I'm head of the Climate Emergency Response at Cardiff Council. If we can have the next slide. Okay, so as Cecily said, we've produced a LEAP. And next slide, please. Okay, so I think uniquely maybe what Welsh Government took a decision to fund LEAPs for all of the local authority areas in Wales with amazing foresight, I think. Using methodology developed by the Energy Systems Catapult, sorry. And that was based on some pilot work that the Catapult did with Bridgend and I think Flintshire. So we had followed that journey whilst they developed their methodology and applied the logic to Bridgend, Flintshire, and then a kind of a second tranche for another couple of authorities in Wales. That gave Welsh Government the confidence to do this holistically, which they did. Made our lives easier. Obviously, we didn't have to find money. We didn't have to find quite such political sort of backing to do it. It was procured by Welsh Government as well, so we were the grateful recipients of all that, really. Developed in Cardiff by ARAP, but with regional and national coordination. So in terms of the region, we had the Cardiff Capital region looking at the overview for our particular patch, and then an organisation called Afallan who were looking at that nationally. The benefits and the way we were able to sell this internally were that Welsh Government in procuring this were demonstrating their commitment to use the all Wales findings to inform their future policy and strategy. I'll come on to that a little bit more later. Cardiff Capital Region have some money and some kind of action around energy, so they will use the collective findings to develop a prospectus regionally, but they've also taken a monitoring role moving forward. And I think crucially, the gas electricity operators, the local DNOs, were very public in their support of this, and they committed to using the findings to steer and prioritise their own decarbonisation plans. So before we even started, we had sort of fairly significant buy-in that this was going to be taken seriously by organisations outside of ours. Next slide, please. So what is a LEAP? I guess most of you know, but very quickly, it's a data-driven whole energy system and evidence-based approach. And it really was helping us to identify the most effective routes towards decarbonisation. In Cardiff, we have something called One Planet Cardiff, which is our response to the climate emergency. But it's such a big area, you know, we're often asked, as I'm sure all of you are, you know, how much does this cost? What are the priorities? Where do we start? Are we on target? And this was a really unique evidence base to really try and bring some of that together from a scientific perspective. So it's all about, you know, how you reduce energy, make that most efficient, as efficient as possible, so that renewable energy generation targets can be quantified to meet that demand. Really importantly, it's a partnership approach. It's not just the council. This is what the city does, stewarded and led by the council in this case, but this is about what the city does. And building baselines of data, it models future scenarios, goes through a series of iterations, and then comes up with local actions for us to consider. Okay, so that's briefly what a LEAP is. There's a lot more than that. In terms of our objectives, we really wanted to quantify the scale of the challenge. I mean, it's the question that we're all facing, isn't it? But, you know, what does this actually mean a bit more scientifically in terms of time? Who are the players? Who needs to be involved in all of this? Particularly roles and responsibilities. It couldn't just be the council. This is very much a partnership approach. And for us as a fairly densely developed urban area, you know, how do we match our demand with supply? It includes transport as well, and how to decarbonize that. And we were keen to look at, you know, priorities, quick wins, but how do you really get the best return on investment here? Where's the bang for the buck, as it were? And it's helped us to do all of that. So next slide, please. Very importantly for us, there was significant stakeholder engagement through this. So we had, with ARAP's assistance, 3 fairly major consultation workshops lasting 3 or 4 hours each, where we involved the local service areas across the council. That was really important, but also the local utilities, our major academic institutions. That's quite big in Cardiff. There's 3 universities. Major developers who are at large, particularly on strategic sites for the local development plan. The businesses, the big ones on their own, but also the Chamber of Trade representing the smaller ones. Housing associations, transport providers, and the list went on. And they were very well attended, very interesting consultation workshops. 3, first to benchmark and then gradually to kind of promote what the findings were, and obviously there were more formal commenting opportunities alongside that. So this page, the document itself is hundreds of pages long. There's fantastic science in there. There's evidence. There's methodologies. But this is, I guess, the money shot. This is the executive summary, and this is what really brought particularly our local members to the table. In effect, this is the shopping list of what we need to reach net zero. So you can see there, that there's significant ground-mounted rooftop solar, onshore wind. We need to maximize that. We've got a heat network this approaching completion, and that plays a part locally. And this transition for the transport system away from diesel and petrol and into firstly a more sustainable modal shift, but then what's the residual transport taken up with electric and possibly hydrogen. So you can see there, to try and make this real for the city, we built a solar farm a few years ago. We need another 12. We need a staggering 115,000 domestic rooftops for PV. That's maybe some of those are factories and supermarkets, but that's just to give a sense of the scale of the challenge. 9 wind turbines. The grid capacity needs to be increased by 2.5 times. 26,000 EV chargers, both public and private, and around 160,000 heat pumps. So this is really starting to get on top of what we need to do here. By the way, because we're densely populated, all of that would only account for about 30% of the local needs. We'd still need to import around 70%. So really starting to quantify the scale of that challenge and to identify the areas that we need to be active in. So next one, please. This is just quickly, I won't dwell on this, but this is like how that breaks down into the areas of the city. So where, renewables might be, where there's a dense population and more retrofit and that kind of thing needed. So that's a kind of a local representation of all of that. Okay, so next slide. So really, this was our evidence base of all of the interventions needed to deliver net zero, not just by the council, but by all players. So I guess the next stage is, well, if that's the scale of the challenge, how do we unpick that? So this is the progress since. So the cabinet decision in approving and publishing this plan, it was very important that it was published and endorsed as a key evidence base for everyone active in the city. But we took the very clear decision to use that information to come up with the next stage of our climate actions, which we've called the Green Deal proposition. And that's aimed at, clarifying what those next steps are. So that work is translating into defined targeted actions, those outcomes, identifying who owns those and delivery partners, and being really clear about the ones the council can lead as opposed to the ones council can promote and steward. Really trying to hone in on those really great early investment opportunities, partnerships, funding models, that kind of thing, focusing obviously on the easier ones first and then through to the more difficult ones. But then also, we all know that this target is very challenging. So our members turned it into an ask for the incoming government. So, we can do this if a few things change. So there's lots of delivery tools, direct council delivery, policy and enforcement around encouraging others to do it. Behavior change, really important, and all the other things. So that's what we've been working on since. So the next and final slide, I think, is our action. So as I said, we are refocusing our next steps. And the evidence has really pushed us into doing much more on local renewables, how we develop those ourselves, but how we clear the way in planning policy terms, take another step in identifying those areas that might be suitable for renewables developed by others, and then having key conversations with the DNO about the possibilities and the time scale for that. So that's a big part. Domestic retrofit is huge. Almost every building in the UK, I guess, needs domestic retrofit. The scale and pace of that needs to change dramatically. And we've got some exciting kind of initiatives around that are coming up. There's a whole other strategy around transport and modal shift as well, which is part of this, but has a life of its own. Cardiff Capital Region, I mentioned, so they are still active here, even though all of the LEAPs are in place. They still have an ongoing monitoring role, helping us to coordinate and communicate the blockages, regional meetings. The utilities are actually, there is evidence that they are using this in their various regional plans, the NESO consultations, DFES, all of those things. Really good evidence that they are using it. And one of the key outcomes for me is I have much better kind of customer care and relationships now with those utilities. They know what we want. They see the context. They see the evidence, and those conversations are easing. And then finally, Welsh Government, that I've already, it's not ready to share, unfortunately, but there is a draft now of the combined LEAPs for the city, which is really exciting. And this is helping our conversations, I think, with Trydan Gwyrdd is Welsh Government's version of GB Energy, but they overlap. So, we have our shopping list to go to those people and have those conversations. So there we are. I probably went over time. Sorry, Cecily.
Diolch, Gareth. That was great. And you didn't go over time. No, you didn't go over time. But that was really helpful to hear all about your LEAP in Cardiff, and a bit more about some of the leadership that came from Welsh Government on that, because I guess we're waiting for something similar in England. Without further ado, diolch, Gareth, and welcome to Michael. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone. My name is Michael Siddons. I am the project manager and I guess the representative for the Leicestershire Collaborate to Accelerate Net Zero demonstrator today. So if we just move on to the next slide and the next slide. So what is the Leicestershire CAN demonstrator? We are a £2.5 million demonstrator project funded by Innovate UK. This funding is part of their Net Zero Living programme, which is a £60 million programme funding over 50 projects across the UK. The aim of this programme is really to help places accelerate the transition to net zero, but mostly focused on removing non-technical barriers to being able to deliver net zero locally. And this can include things like skills, capacity building, governance, financing, etc. And our demonstrator really tries to look at the whole system and quite a number of barriers. So we're one of 7 demonstrators, and I believe we're the only county council demonstrator within the programme. So next slide, please. And I perhaps should have said that it is a consortium project. So I'm the project manager from the county council, but it is very much delivered by all of the partners at the bottom of the screen. And each of the work packages has a specific work package lead organisation. So Leicestershire CAN is there to try and look at the whole system's approach to net zero. So how do we create an environment for a well-planned, deliverable and impactful place-based net zero interventions across the whole of Leicestershire? And that basically means, how do we prepare for what's needed? How do we look at understanding the best things for what's needed in a local area? And how do we actually demonstrate that we've gone on to deliver something that's accelerating the delivery of net zero. So there's 4 main work packages that we are delivering. And the first looks at governance and how do we all work together as local stakeholders, and how do we ensure that decision-making processes are there to accelerate net zero delivery and projects. This is being led by De Montfort University, which is an apolitical lead, and their role is really to look at what is the best solution that Leicestershire needs to try and enable that accelerated delivery. The second work package is then where our local energy plan comes in, and this is being led by Energy Systems Catapult. And there's a few innovations that we're trying to test and learn from to hopefully then demonstrate to other local authorities how they could follow in a similar direction. And I'll get onto these in a bit more detail in the upcoming slides. The third work packages then looks at trying to ensure that the community has a role within the delivery of net zero across Leicestershire. And this is focused on delivering community energy projects. So we want to work towards having a community energy representation within each district area in Leicestershire, and that this has been thought about and interconnected within the whole demonstrator project from the very start in terms of the preparation all the way through to delivery, and that the governance arrangements and decision-making arrangements alongside the local energy plan work towards having a pipeline of activity for the community to take forwards into delivery. And we're already making really good progress in this regards, and we've launched a solar community energy solar schools program in Leicestershire that's gone out to over 120 schools, that encourages them to participate in a funded from the Community Energy Fund project to look at feasibility assessments for community-owned solar panels on schools across Leicestershire. And the fourth work package then looks at producing, providing an advisory service primarily to businesses to bring them along the journey that we're taking towards net zero, and also host a digital space called Greener Future Leicestershire that brings all of the outputs of the demonstrator together for stakeholders to utilise. Next slide, please. So as this session focuses on the local area energy plan, I've got a few slides to take you through some of the innovations that we are working on. So the local energy plan for Leicestershire covers Leicester and Leicestershire. So we've got 8 local authority areas. Next slide, please. And the local energy plan will look at all of those different intervention and technology types that are on screen now. But the areas of innovation that we are working towards, the first is around the actual modelling approach that we're taking with the local energy planning that I've got a few slides coming up that I'll take you through. But the other areas of innovation include that we've started from the very start of the process to map and explore specific user needs and requirements across 4 main user types. And these user types are local government, community energy, network operators, and investors. So we've had an extensive mapping exercise to make sure that what we're doing is working towards these needs and requirements being met in the modelling process, but also in the actual outputs to ensure that those users can benefit from what the local energy plan is producing. The next innovation comes in with what we're hoping to produce from the outputs of the LAEP. And this is an open interactive digital platform that is publicly available for stakeholders to utilise and engage, interrogate the data that comes out of the local area energy plan. So this is currently in production, and we hope to launch that in autumn later this year. So on the next slide, we'll be going into further details around the modelling approach that we're taking. So for each local authority area, we've undertaken this specific approach. So typically, I believe local energy plans have been done to date using a couple of scenarios per local authority area. We've tried to look at this from very much trying to maximise the evidence-driven process to understand what is the best thing that should happen in a local area to get us to net zero in the most cost-effective but furthest towards net zero way that we can. So to do this, for each local authority area, we've modelled over 2,500 scenarios that test different interventions and their characteristics to understand what impact that would have on the local areas. So next slide, please. And each of these scenarios have then been mapped against what the business as usual scenario would deliver. And from these 2,500 scenarios, we've then looked at what are those that are the effective ones. And these pretty much mean which get us along the furthest of the carbon reduction journey, but also at the lowest annual cost. And the purpose of this is that we want to try and minimize biases from technologies or decision making, and really look at the evidence-driven process that the modelling is telling us as the best solutions for the local area. Next slide, please. And what this looks like is that we have scenarios within the modelling that perhaps maximise the use of air source heat pumps, which is on the left, or they maximise district heat networks, which is in the middle, or they try and maximise household or domestic level of insulation, such as on the right. And this enables us to try and understand the local areas to see what are the low risk, low regret options for delivery that we can be confident in saying is the best thing for the local area to do when we look at the energy system. I say the energy system because this is producing an energy evidence base for decision making, but decision makers then have to take other considerations into account. But prior to this, we've not had that evidence base to be inputted into the decision-making process. So next slide, please. So to show you what this means in reality and where this all comes together, this is just an example of the city in regards to heat network potential. So out of all of those different scenarios that we've been able to model, we've then been able to look at the agreement between the outputs of those scenarios to understand which has a high level of scenario agreement that technology should happen in that particular street or location within our local areas. And you can see what that looks like on screen. And if we then move on to the next slide, and I'm sure these slides will be shared so you'll be able to look at them in more detail. We've then been able to, in this instance, look at then the DESNZ heat network zoning and what this means compared to then what the local energy plan is suggesting. And really this helps build the evidence base and looks at even potential for expansion of what the heat network zoning has recommended within the city area. And we're able to do this for all the different technology types for a local area. And the purpose, as I said, is that it's trying to bring that evidence base that we can be confident in so that we're able to understand, particularly over the next 5 years, on what is the low risk, low regret options for delivery that we know is the right thing to be doing in an area, so that when there are funding pots that come, that for example, or that we're trying to attract investors, we know that we're doing it based on that strong evidence base that it's the right thing to be doing in that area for the energy system. Next slide, please. And then that's the stage we're at the moment. So we've done all the modelling, we're looking at the outputs, and we're producing the local energy plans. And if we just move on to the next slide again, what we're then doing, so this project runs, as I didn't say at the start, it started in March 2024 and it runs till the end of November 2025. And the next stage is look at working with all of our stakeholders to look at prioritization of focus zones and projects, build up investment portfolios that we're then working with some investors to try and attract portfolios of delivery into Leicestershire. And we're also looking at business cases that we're developing. And this is then supported, as I said, by the advisory service, which is the digital space and support systems, but particularly around businesses. And the final slide, which is just next, just brings in then the community energy role within all of this. So we're trying to create a community energy hub across Leicestershire that's supported for then the community to play a role in the delivery of projects right across the county. And this also has additional funding for a period of 2 years to continue. And we're aiming to use the outputs of the local air energy plan to build up this strong evidence base that enables community energy to thrive right across Leicestershire, and build and maximise the local benefits that come to Leicestershire communities in the delivery of net zero. And I believe that's the